it's the way they've been making wine for 7,000 or 8,000 years.
So welcome back to Virginia Wine TV, and the Virginia wine industry isn't always about grapes. There's actually some apple cider being made in about almost half a dozen cideries throughout the state. And so we're here one today at Castle Hill Cider with Stuart Madany. So thank you very much for joining me. And Stuart, you I never really get to say cider maker. I mean, there's a small community of you. How do you get into that, and how does it differ from a winemaker?
Well, I kind of do it sort of by surprise. Right? We're doing architectural work here, and we're doing some restoration work, landscape things, and got a little into this barn, and we were asked to look into a feasibility study about making a winery here. And John Red, who's the general manager here, he suggested, well, what about a cidery? I think he'd been to the Albemarle Cider Works.
Mm-hmm.
There they were getting ready to open, and so the owner said, sure, why don't you investigate that? And we did, and step by step it was like, all right, well, just investigate further what design the orchard, and to design the cider orchard I had to study up on what goes into making a cider orchard, what you need to make a balanced cider. And we talked to consultants, and I just started studying kind of more and more, and we just kept taking it one step farther and one step farther, and at a certain point we said, yeah, let's do that. Let's just find me somebody to run it, and we'll do that. And John and I talked, and after a while we decided, well, I think we can try our hand at it.
Yeah. So there's no really apprenticeship program you can go through because there's not many of you.
Yeah, I don't think so. there's we did a couple of classes and read a lot, and there's an extremely supportive community. There's a great online community, and it's Shelton's and at Albemarle Cider Works, and Diane Flynn at Foggy Ridge, and Steve Wood at Farnham Hill were all great resources and very supportive, and it's been a great experience in that way. I think that's true of the Virginia wine community in general.
Oh, absolutely, they're very supportive of each other, and the reason why we're here today is not only to explore cider, but you can't really see most of this right now, but there's this huge earthen clay vessel that is unique in the wine world, and very unique in the cider. You're the only cidery that actually uses these. So tell us a little bit about these containers.
These are called Kvevri, and they're handmade. They come from the Republic of Georgia, and it's the way they've been making wine for 7,000 or 8,000 years. They're currently only 3 or 4 gentlemen in their 80s who still know the process of making these. And John discovered these. He had a Glasgow Rockner wine and tracked these down. That's really fascinating. I'd studied this gentleman's work, some named Victor Schauberger, who studied a lot about shape and its effects and water, and he claimed that the reason that the ancients used M4A, terracotta beeswax-lined M4A, for all their foodstuffs was because that shape holds life energy in it, and that's why eggs and seeds.
Interesting. You don't think about that.
Energy, it uses that shape. And actually, I'm very interested in alchemy too, which is not the way it's popularly understood as like I'm going to get some lead and gold.
Right.
But alchemy's history is extremely entwined with wine and spirits history. And if you look back at old alchemical plates, they're often shaped like specimens and convex and things. So it was extremely important to me to go back to the way wine was first made.
And most of this, the Republic of Georgia, they produce some excellent wines, and these are just, you always hear about archaeologists digging up one of these, 5,000-6,000 years old.
Yeah.
So it's pretty neat that you can just come right out here to Charlottesville and actually see one that's made in, or see the fragments of one. And then in the ground here, we have about a feet here. They're actually not buried because you have a ramp that you roll these down to, or then they are buried.
Well, they're buried, yeah. mill the apples, unlike grapes. You have to chop them up into little bits, and then you press them in a cider press, which is a little different than a wine press. But from there, it's much like a wine process, really, especially a white wine process.
And so then you fill up one of these containers,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously you said you had to line it with beeswax, and there's a learning curve you've gone through, and then it's ferments here.
Mm-hmm.
So for how long is usually the fermentation period?
It's a little slower here. It's a little cooler than inside. I like to run a pretty cool fermentation there too, but it's probably about 4 weeks.
And then so obviously they sit on their leads.
And they sit on the leaves for
Gives you a little more
months.
texture, yeah. And then it's obviously then pumped out, and then I guess you clarify it.
We did filter. We're very much still experimenting and deciding what to do long term. We actually force carbonated this first year. Gonna move into bottle conditioning, possibly everything. I'm gonna do some bottle conditioning this year.
So the one cider we're drinking now is the Levity, which is the only one made aged and fermented and aged in these vessels. And so we have here, and it's really nice. I mean, it's dry. It's actually made from the Albemarle Pippin. You want to tell us a little bit about?
Sure. Everywhere else in the world, the Albemarle Pippin is the Newtown Pippin, but it came here on Castle Hill. Thomas Walker, who was Jefferson's mentor and guardian, got cuttings from George Washington Brandywine, planted it here, and it eventually found its way to Queen Victoria, who liked it so much she said, "No tariff on these apples," and so it became a hugely important cash crop around these parts, and so it became the Albemarle Pippin. Possibly in England and around here, it became known as that. So
it's another neat history, local history behind that. And so, how many other grape or apple varieties?
We've planted 28. We don't have access to that many. It's a lot of apples that are good for cider are not good for eating or cooking or processing. So ciders are re-emerging. Some of those are being planted, but they're very hard to find. We've been lucky to get some high tannin apples that aren't good for anything else from New England, but other than that, there's only a few varieties that are good for both eating and cider that we can get right now. So we're still waiting to have our own apples, and right now we're having to work with other growers, which is great and we'll continue to do, but we have a limited palette. We've got probably just 5 varieties that we can get here in Virginia, and then we get the high tannin of about another 5 or 6 varieties of that we're working with too.
Yeah. So this is a really nice cider. It's just, flavorful. Then you get a little bit of tartness, a little bit of acidity, but just being dry. I mean, most people can think cider is sweet, which it can be, and it can be made very nicely. Sweet and off dry. But having a dry cider is quite nice.
Yeah, what we and other craft cider makers are doing now is something that people still are largely unaware of. I think people still have, their impression of cider from one of the, major six-pack brands.
Yeah.
And it's just a different experience. We're making something that's quite different, and so it's still something waiting to be tried by most people.
Yeah, well, great. Well, thank you very much, Stuart.
Thank you.
And it's Castle Hill Cider just outside of Keswick, and we'll see you next time.